let me tell you about a list. Not a grocery list, not a wish list, a military target list, published by one of the most powerful armed forces in the Middle East. And this list is different from any military target list that has ever been published in the history of modern warfare, because every other military target list in history has had things on it like air bases, radar towers, oil fields, warships, and missile systems. Those are what armies go after. That is what wars look like. Soldiers and weapons hitting other soldiers and weapons. This list had 6 names on it that have never appeared on any military target list. Ever. Not once. In any war. In any country. In any century of recorded human conflict. The 6 names were Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, IBM, Oracle, and Palantir. 6 technology companies. 6 companies whose apps are sitting on your phone right now. 6 companies whose services most of the people reading this have already used today, probably before they even had their morning coffee. On March 11th, 2026, a military organization called the IRGC, which stands for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the main armed force of Iran, published an official announcement through its own official news channel. That announcement said in plain language that every office building, every data storage facility, and every piece of computer network that these 6 companies operate across Israel, the Gulf region of the Middle East, is now a military target. Iran just put Google's office building on a hit list, and then they did something even more extraordinary. Something that no military in modern history has ever done before, announcing a campaign of strikes against a set of targets. They warned regular people to leave, not to evacuate near a military facility, not to stay away from an Air Force base. They told the ordinary public living in cities like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and other Gulf cities to not stand within 1 kilometer of any American or Israeli-connected bank, 1 kilometer from a bank, because they were telling the public that banks might be hit by missiles. That warning was issued on March 11th, 2026, day 12 of a war that the people who started it described as a short trip, a quick operation, in and out. Today is day 13. And the question that every government, every person with money in a Gulf bank account, every technology company executive, and every ordinary person who uses the internet is asking right now is the same question. Is this actually going to happen? To answer that question, you cannot look at what Iran said. You'd have to look at what Iran already did, because the list published on March 11th is not the beginning of the story. It is the 2nd chapter, and chapter 1 already happened 11 days ago, on the very first morning of the war. Let me take you back to March 1st, 2026. The news that morning was already shocking. A major political and military figure had been killed. The Middle East was an open conflict. Oil prices were jumping. People all over the world were glued to their phones and televisions trying to understand what was happening. And while that chaos was filling every screen, Iran did something that nobody saw coming. They fired drones at a data center. Now, most people have never thought about what a data center actually is. So let me explain it simply. When you open an app on your phone, whether it is a map, a delivery service, a banking app, or anything else, the information you see does not live on your phone. It lives somewhere else. It lives in a building full of computers, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, stacked in rows, humming and running constantly, storing and processing every piece of digital information. That app needs to show you. Those buildings are called data centers, and they are not glamorous. They look like warehouses. They are usually in quiet, industrial areas. Most people drive past them every day without knowing what they are, but they are the physical foundation of the digital world. Every email you send, every payment you make on your phone, every map route you follow, every time you order food delivery, the information making all of that possible is sitting inside one of those buildings. Amazon, the same company that sells products online, also runs one of the largest collections of these buildings on Earth. Their service, called Amazon Web Services, basically rents out space inside these buildings to thousands of other companies and governments. When a bank wants to store customer records, when a delivery app wants to track drivers, when a hospital wants to manage patient files, many of them pay Amazon to keep that data in Amazon's buildings. 3 of those Amazon buildings were in the UAE and Bahrain. They handle the digital operations for banking, payments, delivery apps, and business software across the entire Gulf region. On March 1st, 2026, Iranian drones struck those buildings. 2 of the UAE buildings were directly hit. One in Bahrain was damaged by an explosion nearby. Amazon confirmed the buildings had physical damage. The fire suppression systems inside the buildings, which spray water or chemicals to stop fires, activated. Water flooded into the rooms full of computers, mixing a fire emergency with a flooding emergency at the same time. Amazon told its customers to expect the recovery to take a long time given the physical nature of what had been destroyed, and the effects were immediate and visible. Careem, the most popular ride-sharing and delivery app in the Gulf, used by tens of millions of people every day, went offline completely. People could not call a car. Drivers could not receive jobs. Payment services hub. Pay in a lane reported outages. People could not complete transactions. Emirates, NBD Bank, First Abu Dhabi Bank, and Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank all reported disruptions to their services. People trying to move money, check balances, or make payments hit errors. Enterprise software across the region lost connection. Businesses could not access the tools they used to run their daily operations. All of it in an instant because a drone had set fire to a building where servers lived. An organization called the Uptime Institute, which monitors data centers globally and is considered the authority on their security and reliability, confirmed what had happened in a single sentence. This was the first confirmed military strike on a major commercial cloud provider in the history of warfare. Nothing like it had ever happened, ever, in any war, anywhere in the world. Iran did it on the very first day of this conflict, before the smoke had cleared, before casualty figures were released, before oil crossed $100 a barrel, before the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which a huge portion of the world's oil passes, was closed. Iran looked at the modern American economy, identified its most important and most connected infrastructure, and hit it on day one. That was the proof. That was the demonstration. That was Iran showing the world they could find these buildings and destroy them. This published on March 11th, naming Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, IBM, Oracle, and Palantir as the expansion of what was already proven possible. Now here's the part that most news coverage is missing. The part that makes the situation far more serious than just a technology company getting its office building threatened. To understand why Iran chose these specific 6 companies, you have to understand what these companies actually do for the United States military. Because these are not just the companies that make your search engine and your computer operating system. In 2026, these 6 companies are the operational backbone of American military power. Let me explain that in simple terms. An army needs to communicate. When a military commander needs to coordinate operations happening in 6 different countries at the same time, all the radio signals, all the data, all of the logistics, all the planning runs through computer systems. Those computer systems need to live somewhere. Microsoft won multi-billion-dollar contracts to run those computer systems for the United States military. When American military operations are being coordinated digitally, a significant portion of the computing power making that possible belongs to Microsoft. Google has contracts with U.S. defense agencies that its own employees protested publicly for years. Those contracts involve giving military intelligence operations access to AI capabilities. Palantir, a company many ordinary people have never heard of, is worth $60 billion. It did not get that way by selling software to hospitals. Palantir built a system that U.S. Special Operations Forces use for targeting. That system takes raw information from satellites, from intercepted communications, and from field reports, and turns all of it into specific coordinates. Strike here, hit this location. That is Palantir's product. Nvidia makes chips. Most people know Nvidia from video game graphics cards. The same chips that make video games look realistic also power artificial intelligence systems. And right now, those AI systems are processing satellite images of Iranian territory in real time, identifying missile launch sites, tracking vehicle movements, and generating the lists of targets that American and Israeli aircraft are using to decide what to bomb next. That entire process runs on Nvidia chips. IBM has been providing computing infrastructure to U.S. intelligence agencies for decades. It runs some of the most sensitive government computing systems on Earth. Oracle, a company that makes database software, holds classified U.S. government data under contracts, make it one of the most deeply embedded commercial companies in the entire American national security structure. Iran's argument, published explicitly in their official statement, is that these are not neutral companies going about ordinary commercial business. They are the companies whose technology is actively enabling the airstrikes that Iran says have killed more than 300 civilians, struck 10 medical facilities, bombed a girls' school, and reduced entire neighborhoods to rubble. Iran is arguing that companies whose products directly power military targeting have made themselves military targets. Legal experts around the world will debate that argument for years, but that is the argument Iran published. And whether you agree with it or not, it explains precisely why those 6 companies and not any others appeared on that list. Now look at where these 6 companies have built their presence in the Middle East, because geography tells you everything about what is actually at stake here. Google's Middle East headquarters is in Dubai, not a small office with a few employees, a major regional operation sitting inside one of the most visible commercial districts in the city. Microsoft has its largest regional presence in Abu Dhabi, where it committed $3 billion to build data centers in 2022 and 2023 alone. Oracle has been aggressively expanding its infrastructure across the Gulf. Nvidia has partnerships with UAE government funds that are spending enormous amounts of money in AI development. IBM operates across multiple Gulf countries, providing technology services to governments and financial institutions. All of this infrastructure, every server, every office building, every cable and connection was built on a single assumption. That assumption was given an official name just 6 weeks before this war started. In January 2026, the United States government announced what it called the Pax Silica Initiative, a formal agreement with the UAE and Qatar designed to keep American AI chips and American technology in the Gulf, specifically to prevent that technology from reaching China. The security plans around this initiative were detailed and expensive. They covered controls on chip exports. They covered tracking technology, covered political agreements. They covered restrictions on technology transfers. They were designed to solve one specific problem, keeping advanced American technology out of Chinese hands. Not a single word of those security plans addressed Iranian drones. Not one contingency plan asked the question, what happens if the buildings themselves become military targets? 11 days ago, Iranian drones set an Amazon building on fire in the UAE. Yesterday, Iran's military published a formal target list naming 5 more American technology giants. The entire strategic foundation of American technology dominance in the world's most important energy region is now being tested against a reality that nobody planned for. Let me talk about money now, because the financial consequences of what is happening are already enormous, and they are not yet fully reflected in what the markets are showing. Since February 28, $6 trillion in global stock market value has been wiped out. $6 trillion. That reflects higher oil prices, the shock to energy supply, and general fear about the war. What does not yet reflect is the specific scenario Iran published yesterday. Here's why that matters. Financial analysts at Goldman Sachs told Bloomberg this week that most investors have been treating the Amazon data center attack as a one-time incident. One building hit. Services temporarily interrupted. Workloads moved to other locations. Services restored within days. Problem contained. That analysis rests entirely on one assumption, that the attacks remain isolated. The IRGC's published list from March 11th is a formal declaration. The assumption is wrong. This is not an isolated incident. This is a campaign. And a campaign against Google's Dubai headquarters, or Microsoft's Abu Dhabi campus, or Oracle's Gulf operations, executed with the same precision that took down Kareem and 3 UAE banking apps on day one, cannot be absorbed the way the Amazon attack was. It cannot be fixed by moving digital traffic to servers in Germany. It will be absorbed by stock markets, by pension funds. Every technology investor on Earth who wakes up and realizes that the building where their money is effectively sitting just appeared on an active military target list, and that the US Navy cannot protect a commercial office building in Dubai. Here is a critical detail about how modern financial markets work. A company's stock price does not need to actually be hit by a missile to fall dramatically. It needs its investors to read that the company's data center is on an active military target list, and then decide, in the space of seconds, that the risk is no longer worth it. The decision happens automatically through computer-driven trading systems in milliseconds. The financial damage arrives before the drone does. Now here's the question that nobody in the US government is answering publicly, but that every CEO on that Iranian target list asked their security team the morning of March 12th. Can the United States military actually protect a Google office building in Dubai? Not in theory. Not in the general statement about American military power. Specifically, practically, right now, on day 13 of a war. This is a war where American missile interceptors, the weapons used to shoot down incoming drones and missiles, are being restocked from storage facilities in South Korea because stocks in the region are running low from 13 days of continuous combat. This is a war where the US Navy has acknowledged publicly that it cannot guarantee safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. This is the war where 3 Amazon data centers are still in recovery from drone strikes 11 days ago. Against that backdrop, can America defend a commercial technology building in the UAE against the same drones that already proved on day one that they can reach and destroy civilian infrastructure? The honest answer, based on the current state of American military resources in the region, is no, not reliably, not without enormous cost, and not indefinitely. The math of the situation is brutal. To protect a single data center building against a sustained drone campaign, you need layered air defense. You need radar systems. You need interceptor missiles. You need the expensive, sophisticated hardware that is already being depleted across the entire region from 13 days of combat operations. The cost of defending a single data center from sustained attack approaches the cost of simply building a new one, and Iran can send another drone for approximately the cost of a used car. One side spends millions to defend, the other side spends thousands to attack, and keeps attacking. This is the piece of the puzzle that the people who planned this war did not model. Plan for a military operation. Damage Iran's missile sites. Eliminate its nuclear facilities. Demonstrate overwhelming American power. Force Iran to absorb losses until it decides the cost is too high. They expected Iran to fight back militarily, to fire missiles at military bases, to attack warships, to shoot down aircraft. What they did not expect was that Iran would simultaneously open an entirely different kind of front, one targeting the commercial and technological infrastructure of the American economy, a front where every defensive move costs more than the offensive one, a front where the attacker does not even need to destroy the target to win. It only needs to make the target dangerous to be near. Because once Google's Dubai office is on an active military target list and the whole world knows it, the building becomes dangerous regardless of whether a drone ever arrives. Businesses stop signing contracts with companies operating in that building. Workers stop showing up. Investors pull money out. Partners pause agreements. The damage accumulates without a single strike. There is a geopolitical message underneath all of this that is being broadcast simultaneously to every government on Earth that is watching this war from a distance. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway, that is the passage point for a massive portion of the world's oil supply, is now closed to most international shipping. The exception is Chinese ships and ships owned by Muslim operators. The IRGC's technology target list names American companies. Chinese technology companies, including Huawei, Alibaba's cloud services, and others, all of which have significant operations in the Gulf, do not appear on that list. Iran is sending a message to every government, every wealth fund, every technology company deciding where to invest next. American infrastructure in this region is a military target. Chinese infrastructure is not. Choose accordingly. That message is landing. Gulf governments that have spent the past decade carefully building relationships with both the United States and China, attracting investment from both sides, are now watching the American half of that relationship catch fire in real time, while the Chinese half passes through the Strait of Hormuz without interference. No official statement needed. No press conference. No diplomatic declaration. The picture speaks for itself. Let me zoom out and look at the whole situation as it stands on day 13. 13 days ago, the people who started this war called it a short-term excursion. An Israeli government minister suggested that changing the Iranian government could take a year. The U.S. military requested 4 to 6 weeks to achieve objectives that, as it turns out, have no clear military finish line. 13 days of the most intense American bombing campaign since the Iraq War in 2003 has not shut down Iran's underground military command network. That network consists of 31 hardened facilities buried deep underground beyond the reach of conventional bombs. Iran's factories are running double shifts, producing new weapons faster than airstrikes are destroying existing ones. And now, on day 13, the conflict has extended its reach into the buildings that run the American economy. Their addresses are on a published list. The locations are known. And the organization that published the list already proved 11 days ago that it knows how to find a building and destroy it. Let me bring this home to what it means for ordinary people. The apps on your phone, the services you use every day, the bank app, delivery apps, the payment apps, the maps, the emails, all it depends on physical buildings in specific locations. Buildings that can be found on a map, buildings that can be photographed by a satellite, buildings that a drone can reach. The technology that powers modern daily life was built on the assumption that those buildings were safe, that they existed in a world where technology companies were neutral, where their services crossed political borders without becoming part of any conflict. That assumption has been under serious challenge since March 1st, 2026. The world is being shown, in real time, that the physical infrastructure of the digital world is not invisible and not invulnerable. It is buildings, specific buildings, with addresses, on streets, in cities, that show up on satellite images, and one of the most powerful military organizations in the Middle East has just formally declared that the buildings belonging to the 6 most important technology companies in America are, in their words, their new targets. The Amazon fire suppression systems activated 11 days ago. Water poured into server rooms to stop the flames. Recovery took days. Millions of people could not use their apps, their banks, or their delivery services. Yesterday, Iran named 6 more companies. Google's Middle East headquarters is open for business right now. It is easy to find. It is on a map. Its address is public information. And the organization that is now put on a formal military target list already proved 11 days ago that they know how to hit a building. The question is no longer whether they can do it. They showed us they can. The question is what happens next to the buildings, the markets, to the technology that runs the modern world, and to the assumption, built over decades, that these companies exist in a space that wars do not touch. That assumption is gone, and what replaces it is still being written, one day at a time.